Thank you, and I'll follow up with that questioning. So there's nothing on your network side that in your capabilities that's stopping stir shaking then, is that correct?
No, that's not correct. In terms of network, the first thing is you have to. So I've talked about the devices to the end user, but
Okay,
in
yeah,
our
no,
network, which is
Yeah.
what you're asking about, our actual switches themselves
Yeah.
have to be upgraded to be able to handle that. We're in the process of doing that with all of our vendors, and so not all of our switches are ready to do that.
So that would be the only, because I
Not
guess I see-
the only. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
that's
I'm
narrow it
avoid
down.
getting to more technical and more things. There's many
I guess
other
what
things.
I'm getting at here, though, is there seems to be a reluctance to some degree, and some of this can be consumer driven on a positive end for consumers wishing to take advantage of stir shaking by replacing outdated equipment and so forth. So I guess what I'm hearing is a little bit of mixed signals on this. Is that, you know, there's a right for consumer choice if it shouldn't be the excuse not to do something or slow something down. If somebody chooses to update their own telephone system and so forth. I want to make sure I get this one correct and go through across everybody. Do I understand that everybody here, you provide free caller ID or identification or blocking? Is there no charge to any of your customers for any of that type of things?
That's correct.
Rogers?
Sorry, I'm not sure. I don't believe we have any fees for caller ID or anything like that. I'll double check, but I don't think we do. We do? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check. Sorry.
No,
wasn't
I
sure.
believe we do in terms
Yeah.
of. But I just
So-
want to be clear when I said, but that's
No, this
a
is my
different-
time. I'm sorry, this is my time. Now, I just wanted a straightforward answer on that because for some of my constituents, and I know from my service provider, I have to bundle that with something else that I don't want or not get it. And that's an economic barrier for some Canadians. And I think that's patently unfair to allow protection for some people to take place so they can afford it where others can't. So I'd ask you to revisit those policies because even if they are one times offered for free, sometimes they're bundled with other things. When it comes to the CRTC enforcement systems in place, Rogers, you mentioned, I'm calling you by company's name, so sorry, Mr. Shaw. Yeah. You mentioned about, and I'm a big fan of this too, is that, I mean, if you break the rules, you get punished for it. And the CRTC has used AMPs in a way that I don't think are terribly effective at times. And it can be a lost leader for some businesses to plead for forgiveness and then ask for permission. What could they do more that would actually get the bad actors out of the way?
So on one hand, I want to just express that they are trying their best. I do believe that. The problem you have with the bad actors out there is they don't care about the rules. And that was kind of the point we're trying to make, is that you have these DNC rules, but the people, especially the ones who are abroad, aren't listening, and they're never going to listen to them. And so they simply ignore the law, and there's really nothing for the CRTC to actually do. And that was kind of the real point I was trying to make. In broadening their efforts, I just think that when they do find Canadian connections to these mostly international schemes, they do need to pursue them, work with their RCMP partners, and make an example of them.
Yeah, no, there's been lots of testimony over the years of CRTC needing its own update itself, and also having some timelines for decisions, because you don't even have a timeline for your application. Is that correct? In terms of the CRTC, it's going to go through its regular process, but that could take quite some time.
That is correct.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. I just want to ask one other question related to the filtering services that you have available right now. Is there any of that or interest in some type of a universal system being employed or benchmarking? One of the recommendations I'm looking at is whether consumers or a consumer agency or even the industry Canada can benchmark the different operators in the system in terms of their protection of privacy, information, and consumers' trust related to calling. Maybe I'll start with TELUS and go across.
So just to make sure I understood correctly, you're asking, like, should we benchmark our call filtering technologies? We certainly have stats shared with you. Our call control service blocks 40% of the calls to people who've activated it. Should be benchmarked. Everyone is using different technologies, so it may be difficult for an independent party to generate more nuisance calls to validate whether they're being captured. This may come as an annoyance to people. By all means, we already are subject to many benchmarking on the speed test, on many other forms. So I can't comment beyond this, and I'll take away your comment around the caller ID as well, just to make sure that it's not bundled with anything else.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll echo a lot of that. Another thing is, for example, for universal call blocking, when we first implemented it, we kind of kept the net wide, like a big mesh, and slowly over time we're shrinking the mesh as we understand it better. So I think it's kind of hard to kind of measure people carrier to carrier or even international standards, because we're constantly improving what we're doing already. So I think it's kind of difficult for us to actually do that. But
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you'd be benchmarking in terms of like how you would judge the standards. I guess I'd put it this way. We want to be the best at providing service to our customers, and customers are annoyed by these calls and as well as scammed by these calls. And so I think it's in our interest to work with the industry to actually get the best solutions and to share our learnings amongst ourselves. This is a weird area where we're actually sharing solutions amongst ourselves. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
And
for that.
we'll now move into